Everybody, Andy here again. Well, this is one of those sort of fairly traditional, I suppose, end of the year videos. We all tend to do them. I don't do New Year's resolutions, as anybody's watched my videos before will be able to tell you probably. But I thought this has been, as you seen by the title, this that was the year that was type of thing, and this has been one of those years. It's been a very, very momentous year in my life, and anyone who's followed me online over this past year will know, because I've documented it in videos, audio boos, blog posts, photographs even, and things like that. So that's one of those sort of unique things that we do here. But I wanted to go over it because one of the great things about doing it like this is you can then look back at where you were in a particular part of your life or your year, and you can see the sort of state of mind that you were in, and that's quite good to go back yourself, and for other people obviously, family members or whatever, if they want to do they want to subject themselves to that, I suppose. But I thought I'd go back through the year because I wrote down I've got it on a bit of paper, I've got it in my pocket out of the way, but I sort of wrote down lots of things that had happened this year, and as I said, it's been a real roller coaster of a ride of a year. There's been some great highs, there's been a hell of a lot of lows as well, but some of those lows have actually turned into highs, or at least sort of medium way anyway. They haven't turned out quite as bad as you might have thought originally. And I was writing these things down, and I realised that there was something, pretty much every single month of the year, there was some sort of event that happened in my life. They might not be momentous, as some of them were, some obviously more so than others, and in other people's lives they might not be particularly big, you know, but for me they were all little turning points and little indications and consequences maybe of some of the things that went on this year. My year started off, as I said, anyone who follows me will know that a bit of a strange time of year. I did a video about Christmas not long ago, and I said in there that Christmas last year my father had just gone into hospital. The new year he was still in hospital, and unfortunately on the 17th of January he sadly died. He was very, very nearly 93 years old, but he'd been in fairly good health, so that obviously is a big low. Yes, we were half prepared for it because he obviously had been in hospital, and he hadn't been particularly well, but it doesn't matter how old someone is, it doesn't matter how prepared you think you are for something like that, it's still a momentous occasion. It's the first parent that I'd lost, thankfully, and it still has an effect now, you know, especially at this time of year you're thinking about that. And I say he died in January, he was buried, cremated should I say, in the beginning of February, and so you're just sort of getting over that. And then in February, very suddenly, my mother-in-law died, and this had an even worse effect in some ways because there's that sort of accumulation. Obviously my wife was affected by my father's death, as were my children, but when your mother-in-law dies as well at a relatively young age, I think she was 75 or just over 70, I forgot. That hits you because that was a sudden death. We weren't prepared for that at all. Yes, she'd had health issues, but nothing that we thought that were that serious, shall we say. And that affected all of us because there was that accumulation, as I said, sort of two strikes very quickly. Certainly affected my children as well. Not that they were closer to her or anything, but it was just that, as I said, that accumulation of grief, of shock or whatever as well, and the fact that they never lost anyone before. My wife hadn't either, so that really brings it home to you. So we had all of that going on, and we're trying to get over that, and obviously all the grief and that went along with that. And then I came to one of those sort of higher points in this year, because I went over to America. I did a road trip over there in California, but even that very nearly didn't happen. A, because we had strikes here in the UK with British Airways cabin crew who I was flying with, and then we had the volcanic eruption in Iceland, which just decimated the whole flights over the whole of Northern Europe and a lot of the world consequently as well, and that very nearly put the trip, well, it did put the trip in jeopardy completely, but it very nearly didn't happen. My son was going to New York, and his holiday was actually cancelled, although thankfully he was able to go not too long afterwards, only sort of a week or so afterwards. But it was literally only 2 days before I flew over to America that the flights resumed. Now that particular holiday, and I'll probably put some links below here, to some of the videos that I sort of referenced here, but also because I've literally just put up what I expect to be the last video from that road trip, one of the photograph videos, and there's a whole playlist of about 20 odd videos that I've made, and obviously some of the other guys have made as well. Now that particular trip, even that had its ups and downs, because Mike Muse OSF was with us to start with, but he wasn't well and he had to go, literally be rushed into hospital because of a kidney problem, and he had to leave, and Jason MB Wolf manfully took him back to San Francisco to the hospital. We met up with Jason afterwards and we went and visited Mike in the hospital, but even that sort of put a different turn on the holiday. It changed the dynamic of the holiday, and it was one of those holidays that I will never forget, being with some people that I've met before, people like Gary who I've met, but meeting Steve, meeting Mark, meeting Ken, and meeting Jason as well. I've met Mike before in Chicago and Nashville. So that whole week and that sort of unique trip, but I'd always wanted to do that sort of trip and see Los Angeles, San Francisco and up the Pacific Coast Highway as well. But doing it in the company of those guys was really good, and I think we all said how much it meant. It's one of those things that I still look back on. I look at those videos, I look at those photos when I've been editing them recently for the videos, and that really was a great holiday, a real highlight of this year and of any year, I think, and I think all the guys said that, and the more I look back on it, the more I look back on it with a great deal of satisfaction and happiness. And then I came straight back from that to May, back into Hastings Rock, which is obviously always a high point of my life anyway, every year that we do it, and everything that goes to the DJing, the fact that I'm sorting out the local music and all that sort of stuff have a big involvement, and that's great. I really enjoy that as well. So that goes without saying, I think, that I enjoyed that. I do that most years, so that wasn't out of the ordinary. I came back, went back to work, and then in the middle of June I was told that I didn't have a job anymore. So you're going from high points, you know, you've had the low points at the beginning of the year, you go up to the high points of the road trip in America and then come back to Hastings Rock, and then suddenly you're thrust straight back down into that pit of despair or whatever. And that was obviously a shock to me, because yes, we've been going through reorganisation, but I never suspected that that was going to happen. So that was ongoing. That was obviously a very worrying time for myself and for my family and my relatives as well. You know, my mother, my father-in-law, who'd been through the shock of the death of their partners. We'd all been through the shock of the death of our parents as well, and then getting that as well, and you're thinking, what on earth's going on here? That's the sort of third things, you know, bad things come in threes. Hopefully that's the third one out of the way. As you may know, yes, I actually came out of that fairly well. I didn't want it to happen, but once again, that has changed my life completely, and these whole things make you reevaluate everything as well. And I've now got a little part-time job and everything like that. I'm looking to maybe do other things as well, but I'll explain that or talk about that. I've got other ideas, etc. I'd like to pursue, but we'll have to wait and see whether any of those come to fruition or whatever. And so that was the one that's certainly a low point, but has turned into not too bad. My mother actually at Christmas said to me, she said, you know, I think that's done you a big favour. You seem certainly happier than what you were. And yes, I think that's very true actually. I think I am in lots of different ways. I'll change my hand here. So maybe that wasn't too bad a thing. Yes, it wasn't the circumstances that I would have liked, and it's changed your life. But these things sometimes, they're sent to try us, as people said to me. But sometimes good things come out of bad. So that's something I'm hanging on to. I've always been a positive person, so I'm hoping that that's something that I can turn to a positive. So far, it's enabled me to do other things which I shall come to. That went on and on, as you can imagine, the ups and downs of that and getting used to that. We then had a family holiday in Spain, which was great. It was one of those things that we knew was there, and it allowed certainly me to go away and to sit down and think and get all of that stuff out of it. It was good for the whole family. Well, my son was somewhere else, but it enabled us to go away and forget hopefully what had happened throughout the year up to that point. And then we come back, and then another one of the low points, my sister discovered that she had breast cancer. Thankfully, that was discovered very, very quickly, and very, very early, should I say, but very it was one of those things that was discovered really by accident, you know. I'm not going to go into details, but thankfully that's been sorted because of the fact that it was discovered early. She's been treated, she was obviously diagnosed very quickly, she's been treated, and thankfully everything seems to be going well. She's now been given the all clear. Obviously they have to check these things once a year and everything, but everything looks very good with that. But you can imagine how that felt at the time when she came along and told us, and you think, oh God, you know, I mean, what's going on here? What have we done to deserve this type of thing? So that was ongoing for a couple of months, and then one of those other sort of little turning points, I suppose, in what's happened certainly over the last few months. On October the 5th there was the fire on Hastings Pier, and you may have seen the videos, you may have seen the photos, the audio boos, etc, etc. Because I wasn't at work, and this is one of those benefits of not being at work, I was able to get up, go down there, take some photos, record an audio boo, do some videos and things like that, write some blog posts, all that type of thing, because I was there. It was a momentous occasion for the town, something that I've been done some research about, etc, over the past few years as well. And what happened since then, the last quarter of this year has been, a lot of my life has been tied up with that in some way. So maybe that's one of those benefits. As I said, you never know quite what's going to happen. Yes, you have to get out there and do it, and you have to put your photos and your videos and all that sort of stuff out there, which obviously I did, but they've been all over the place. I was somewhere, so the other day I was talking to some sort of relatives, and they said, oh, we saw one of your photos and saw your name mentioned on the BBC, and I had, you know, I've had videos on there and photos in papers. I've had literally just got over the last couple of weeks a book of photographs of Hastings that the guy was doing, and he contacted me and asked me if he could use one of my photos in his book of the pier lights. And so that book's just come, and I might even put a picture of the book at the end of the video because I haven't brought it with me down to the beach. So that's gone on, and obviously I then got involved with trying to organise some events and everything, and that, what came out of that was putting the pier CD together, not the end of the pier CD, with Ian as well, because of my involvement with local music. And talking to people about that, it's something I wanted to do for quite some time, as I've probably relayed elsewhere. But once again, I would never have been able to do that if it hadn't have been for not being in work, because I would never have been able to give my time. It's one of the reasons I got involved in the first place, is because Ian started up a little Facebook group, but he couldn't devote his time because he was at full-time employment, and I said, well, I've got some time, I'll help out, and that's what came out of it. So that's one of those sort of ups towards the end of the year, and that's still going on now. Yes, we sold a few CDs, selling them abroad and that as well, and I tend to give it another big push come the new year as well, and we'll see what we can do with that. We may be doing more, who knows, we're talking about putting another CD out at some time if this one sells a few more copies and we think it's viable and worthwhile. I certainly think so. There's a lot of good music out there. And other things I've done, I did a Spanish course, something else I wouldn't have been able to do without the lack of a job. And something else, that a nice welcome change. I said I've got a part-time job, and because of that I ended up getting a tax rebate because I started different employment, and that works out very nicely, and it got me to buying a brand new camera, a digital camera, something I've wanted to do for quite some time, because I've always enjoyed photography and talking to people like Gary and others, either when I've met them or online as well, and seeing what other people do with photography, and it's something that's always interested me. And I'm thinking about getting a camera, but could never justify the expense, especially without having a job. But that came along, so I'm looking at maybe using that as well, or maybe pursuing something along those lines if I can, and we'll see how that goes. So the end of the year sort of ended on a bit of an up. Apart from Christmas being a bit strange without obviously the lack of certain people around the table, that makes everything a bit weird, and it always brings it back. Christmas does that anyway, but those memories come flooding back. So a very momentous year. What the next year, 2011, brings, I really don't know. I just hope that it's as interesting in some ways, but maybe not quite so momentous as this year has been, because as I said, it's been one hell of a ride. There's been highs, there's lows, there's roller coasters rides, so that's the way it seems as well. And we never know what the future is going to bring, and this time last year everything didn't look too bad. and then as I've just relayed, it changes, or can change, one hell of a lot. That was probably one of the most interesting years of my life in lots of ways, for lots of different reasons. Anyway, I think you've heard enough of that. And I hope you got to the end of this video. And one thing I wanted to say, actually, that one of the things that helped me, apart from having obviously your family and everybody around for all those things that happened to me over the year, one thing that has helped me is being able to document this, as I mentioned at the beginning of the video, being able to do videos and blog posts and audio boos. As I said in the past, it's a great release, it's a great way of getting things out there, but it's also the support and the feedback and the friendship that you get from what I call my sort of global family. I've met some of you, and it's been great to do that. I mean, Mike, I've met, excuse me, I've met twice this year, once in London and once in California, and that just shows you what all this type of thing is about. Yes, I want to do it again, and one reason I want to try and do a bit more work to get some money to maybe do it again. But the support of you guys out there, my global family, has meant a lot to me, and it's certainly helped me, I think, throughout the year. It's given me someone to talk to in some ways, you know, somebody else to talk to, let's put it that way. Someone different, an outlet. But as I said, the feedback and everything that I've got from people, some people I could mention, I'm not going to because I'll only leave people out, but you probably know who you are. But everybody who's commented, everybody who's watched, viewed, whatever it is, sent messages or whatever it is, or even just left a little comment on a video, an audio boo or a blog post or something. It's been very, very worthwhile for me, very, very much appreciated. So that is certainly one of the bonuses of this year. I think it's reinforced that yes, people aren't on the internet, or certainly aren't on YouTube or whatever as much as they used to be, but there's still a lot of people out there, and there's still people who are helping me and have done for a number of years, but certainly this year. So I thank you for that, and I wish you a happy and momentous 2011. And I hope it's a really good one for you, and obviously I hope it's a pretty good one for me as well. So anyway, I'm going to leave it there and enjoy my little stroll on the beach. Thanks very much. Goodbye.